of the value chain. And that's a carbon footprint of a company's activities. But doing the full product carbon footprint, we need to expand that. And this is a good graphical representation of what is required to do that. Reasons why companies are doing carbon footprints today. I think the overriding and important message that we need to give to our clients is that if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. It's like absolutely any other concept where you need to manage. And for us, it's important to understand where you start, setting targets, how you are performing against those targets so that you can make clear decisions on what to do next. Other reasons why companies are doing this is the carbon footprint, as I said, provides great visibility into a company's activities and the impact of those activities. So when it comes to integrated sustainability reporting, another word for triple bottom line reporting that the King 3, the GRI, the ISO standards are encouraging, it provides a great framework for reporting. So carbon footprint is being chosen as, or is being selected as the chosen methodology for doing that. And with sustainability reporting now being mandatory for listed companies, this is especially important because these sustainability reports now need to be a lot more quantifiable, and carbon footprint allows for that. Consumer pressure, customers are starting to be more aware and are asking the questions. Supply chain efficiencies, very important to understand what is the most efficient way to make a product, but also compliance. We're seeing more and more that the big retailers are asking the suppliers to report on their carbon footprint. Big retailers in the UK, Europe, and the USA, part of their strategy is to understand the carbon footprint of the company they're doing business with. Going back to the carbon footprint methodology, scope 3 emissions, that's where it comes out of. They want to know the carbon footprint of their suppliers. Investors, this is quite a big one. You know, we're in that transition period where most of this activity is voluntary, but it's heading very, very fast towards a mandatory situation. And investors want to understand, while it is voluntary, where are the risks? Are they investing in companies that have got a hidden carbon liability that they're overexposed to and that they don't know about? And because of this, initiatives like the Carbon Disclosure Project, sustainability indices like the Johannesburg Stock Exchange Sustainability Index, the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, the rating agency are all asking the questions. What is the carbon footprint, so we can understand how our investors are exposed when investing in these companies? Staff awareness, using the carbon footprint as an awareness tool is very, very valuable. It's all of a sudden, a lot of the staff wake up and say, wow, is that the real impact of us coming to work every day and doing what we do? Management reporting, once it's more mature and you have the data to support it and the breakdown of data per business unit, per region, per shop, whatever it is, it becomes a very valuable tool because you'll be able to see at a glance if there are any variances and where the stress points are in the business. Legislation, we all know about the carbon tax. It was a green paper. It's becoming a white paper. In March next year, during the budget, it's going to be detailed, and we're going to hear exactly how it's going to look. Waste Management Act, it's changing the waste playing field completely. Power conservation program in terms of our energy consumption. Carbon reporting will become something that is mandatory in the not-too-distant future. Heading on to one or two case studies. Okay, we've got two case studies. These are both clients of ours. They're very, very different, but this is just to illustrate how different a carbon footprint can look from company to company and sector to sector. Fair Cape Dairy is a very good client of ours for the last 3 years. This is the carbon footprint we did for their milk production facility in Cape Town. Their slogan is "Do the right thing," and they're constantly trying to improve what they're doing. So carbon footprint for Fair Cape milk production facility, not the whole business, just their production facility looks like this. And as you can see, it's that methane emissions are very, very dominant at their milk production facility, which is really no surprise at all. Methane is a result of manure management, or manure not being managed in the proper way, as well as what's something we call enteric fermentation, which is really just a scientific word for the burping and the farting of the cows, really. There's no real better way to explain it. So methane is, as you can see, 88% of the emissions from the milk production facility, electricity to a lesser extent, company-owned mobile sources, distribution of the milk to the retailers, and as you can see, a very small slither there associated with employee commute to and from work. The actual quantification, you can see scope 1 and 2 is really the most of the biggest portion, or 95% of the emissions of the milk production facility there. And you can see we've broken each of it down into per kiloliter of milk, square meter of housing, per cow. So that's the intensity reporting that I referred to earlier. And these particular metrics were chosen by Fair Cape because every year they're able to compare themselves like on like, no matter if they've doubled the number of cows or what it is. So yeah, Fair Cape, what happened beyond the carbon footprint is that they then went on to, and they're in the process of building a biogas digester, which is effectively going to take their manure and some of the chicken manure from surrounding farms, put it into a biogas digester, generate organic fertilizer as well as methane gas, and convert that into energy, either in the use of their, for use in their trucks or for the generation of electricity via a gas turbine. Woolworths, we all know Woolworths, and we all know they're ahead of the curve when it comes to environmental activities. We did their carbon footprint. This is from 2 years ago. As you can see, a retail business has a very, very different pie graph to a carbon footprint of a milk production facility or any other industrial facility for that matter. We can see 70% of it is from electricity use, and that is really the lighting, the air conditioning in all the retail outlets, as well as the distribution centers and head office. But we also see that employee commute makes up a material portion of their carbon footprint, 8%, which is not uncommon. Just people getting to and from work. And there are lots of things that can be done to address that. Company-owned vehicles you can see as well. Their own trucks as well as the vehicles belonging to their staff, or the vehicles that are subsidized for their staff. Fugitive emissions, that's the HFC emissions, that's the air conditioning and refrigeration emissions, where they're using gases that have got global warming potential, and there are solutions to move those, to transform those systems into using gases that do not have global warming potential. Distribution, third-party distribution, they do make use of companies to move their product around that they don't own, and we need to take consideration of that. Waste, business travel, stationary fuels, paper usage as well, which may seem small, but it's significant, and big impacts can be made through little interventions. So you can see total 408,000 tons of CO2 that is of CO2 equivalent that is emitted on an annual basis by Woolworths. Taking that into the detail, scope 1 and 2, probably about 80% of it is scope 1 and 2 emissions, a bit higher, and you can see there again, intensity reporting is critical because we're able to compare Woolworths on an annual basis per employee, per square meter of retail space, per million rand of turnover. And because a lot of these big retailers are in the public domain, we're able to compare them with other retailers like Clicks, Pick and Pay, etc., via initiatives like the Carbon Disclosure Project. In terms of their scope 3 emissions, we don't include that in their total because, or by using intensity reporting, because those are merely, as I said before, for purposes of raising awareness and trying to exert some influence on suppliers and customers to do things in a slightly different way. Sorry, just on the last slide, Woolworths, as we know, the carbon footprint gave us good visibility into the activities, but they have multiple projects going on with different interventions, including green store concept, developing a blueprint for a green store. So whenever a new store is opened, they apply these design concepts to all new stores, and are in an active process of retrofitting all existing stores to ensure that they're more efficient. When it comes to logistics, they've converted a lot of their refrigerated trucks with different technologies that emit less of the fugitive emissions we spoke about. They are using biodiesel or a blend of biodiesel in certain of their trucks. They've embarked on a very, very strong local sustainable agriculture strategy whereby they're encouraging local suppliers of agricultural suppliers to supply them on an ongoing basis rather than importing products. Packaging is something that they're working very hard at. It's always been a big criticism of the company because it's very visible, but slowly but surely they're getting that right. So it's an ongoing process, and as I said, the carbon footprint merely allows us visibility so that we can make the right decisions. So if we can really remember anything from today, it is the following. start sooner than later. As I mentioned, your first carbon footprint is by no means accurate, and it takes a little bit of time to get an accurate baseline that you can very confidently measure yourself against. So be proactive, don't be reactive. Don't wait for legislation to come in to tell you have to do something, because getting that done in a short period of time can be very painful, more costly, and can really take up a lot of human resources within an organization. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. Okay, very important. You may be very tempted to go change the light bulbs and put in grey water systems, but very important that you have a baseline so you can actually have an audit trail of everything you've done and how it's improved your environmental performance. Very important for communication, marketing, and for your reporting, your integrated reporting. Thirdly, get your house in order before worrying about suppliers. Focus on your scope 1 and 2 emissions first. If you have the capacity, delve out a little bit into scope 3, but get a good sense of your own emissions and take responsibility for those. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I'm now going to ask you if you have any questions, and I'll try and get back to as many of them as possible. Okay, first question. What is the average cost of a carbon footprint? And that is probably the first question we get from a lot of people. The average cost of a carbon footprint depends on who you're dealing with. Okay, I mean, you know, we're a professional company. We've got 21 people working for us. We are able to provide the full service end to end. So a carbon footprint is going to cost more from us than is going to cost from an individual consultant. But you can expect anything really from with a professional company that is accredited, anything from 40,000 Rand upwards. But as I say, you can build your own capacity and you can get people in-house. You can train people. We have our training courses where we train people to do carbon footprints, and that can be a lot more cost-effective for smaller companies. Second question, how long does a carbon footprint take to do? Also a good question, and once again I go back to where the stress points are in the process. The stress points are in the data collation exercise, and that is generally what takes the most amount of time, waiting for data and assisting people within the company to understand how they can get that data. So once we have data, it actually doesn't take a long time to apply the emission factors and do the report. It can take about 2 to 3 weeks, but it can take a long time to get the data in. It can take anything from 3 weeks, and let me tell you, it's taken one of our customers 2 years to get the data in, so that's not a situation you want to get into. What sort of skills does a person commissioning the carbon footprint need, i.e. the green team? They need to be passionate, they need to believe, and they need to have a good visibility into a holistic view of the company. They need to understand where everything is, they need to have access to the data. There needs to be someone from the executive in that green team as well, so that there's a clear mandate and it's part of the performance indicators of the people in the green team to actually do this. Otherwise, it can take a hell of a long time to get this done. What do carbon credits cost to offset their footprint? Well, this is a big topic. In South Africa, there's quite a big range actually. There's a very big shortage of carbon credits in South Africa in the voluntary market. You have companies like Food and Trees for Africa that can cost anything from 180 Rand a ton. We've got other community projects, energy efficiency community projects, bioethanol gel projects that cost about 140 Rand a ton. There's the afforestation project in Mozambique that we deal with, costs about 90 Rand a ton. But carbon credits from other countries where there's a bigger supply can be both accredited and can cost $4 a ton, $5 a ton, $8 a ton. It's actually a very big range. What's more important when it comes to the voluntary market and offsetting your carbon footprint is the story. Is it something, has it got a social impact and an environmental impact that is relevant to the company's activities? And it's very important that you match that because it is a big corporate social investment opportunity. What are the next steps once you've done a carbon footprint? Going back to that slide where I had the full process, it is to drill down into the big impact areas of your carbon footprint, whether it be electricity, fuel, or whatever it may be, methane in the case of, say, Cape Dairy, and then do the necessary studies to understand the feasibility studies and the audits to understand exactly what the financial implications are, the time implications, resource implications of embarking on a reduction strategy. So reduce, as I said, take that information to actively reduce your carbon footprint, and then embark on a carbon offsetting program, as well as the integration into the company's brand, as I said before.